Hey Luke, how you doing, mate? Thanks for joining us again there.
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me back on. Always good to chat about MotoGP with you.
Yep, cool. So yeah, we're gonna try and cover as much as we can there today. I know you've got an hour's break. You're covering BSB today. Where is it today? Is it in Thruxton or?
Thruxton, yeah,
Yeah.
Thruxton.
All right. So we'll let you get back to that. We'll quickly go over everything in MotoGP, every single thing that's happened in the
Mm.
first 11 rounds, basically, and we can send you back to work. Are you enjoying the Mark dominance, mate? I know it's something you've probably been looking forward to since Mark signed for the factory team.
Well, we all knew it was going to happen. Um, I don't. I know a lot of people would have said they all expected this level of dominance, but I don't know if I did see this sort of. It's really impressive. Don't get me wrong. It's really impressive to see, but I don't think I saw him reaching this heights. I thought Pecco would challenge him more than he has been able to.
Yeah, well, that's what I literally was going to be my next question after you said that was, is it because you expected Pecco to be able to nick every few races off him?
Yeah, I thought, what are we at? He's got one Grand Prix win this season, Pecco. I thought we'd be
Off of a
looking,
Mark crash.
yeah, I thought we'd be looking at least, well, we've 12 in, so I thought we'd have at least four for Pecco, maybe. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's the main surprise to me this year. Pecco's terrible year and Mark's dominance was sort of expected, but I didn't see Pecco's having this bad of a year.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I did think it was going to be a bit more of a battle between the two of them. And I don't know. Again, it's like, do you put that down now to, like you said, you didn't expect Mark to be this dominant? Is this dominance just because Mark is that much better than Pecco, or is Pecco just like there's something going on where we've been saying it that something with the way direction that bike's gone in, he doesn't feel very. He mentions the front end a lot. He doesn't feel comfortable going into corners on the front end. Um, if all things being equal, if they just stayed with, they're all on 24 bikes and they all just went again, do you see Pecco winning a few more?
I see him winning a few more. I don't see him winning the championship. I still think Mark would have that edge on the 24. I think it's sort of well known at this point that the 25 isn't as good as the 24. That's probably should be put out there. They had issues with the 25 from the word go in testing. I think Pecco and Mark both said that they just kind of really did not like the bike. Um, but yeah, I still think even if Pecco and Mark were on the 24s, Mark would still be dominating. But I think Pecco would have won a few more, maybe around that 4 or 5 win mark that I think a lot of people would have expected at this point, especially since we've had Mugello, Assen, uh, those sort of tracks where Pecco normally goes well when he just sort of didn't this year.
Yeah, and it was they were the big Assen was a big one, wasn't it? Where everyone we all turned up there going, it has to be now for Pecco. If he does not perform this weekend, he's done. The season's basically cooked. You know what? In fairness to him, he didn't have the pace, but he tried to unsettle a few of them early. Mark at the front tried his best to get to the front. It just was never going to stay there though. And that was it for me. I was just like, that's him done. And while we're on that, I mean, because the big surprise, and you tell me if you think this is more surprising than Mark's dominance, is how good Alex has been.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I really didn't see it. I think we've spoke before for a few years about Alex being potentially bottom Ducati, maybe second last Ducati in the championship over the last few years. And I think Morbidelli might have been below him 1 year, but that was, I think, a lot of injuries. But like, I didn't see it. I really just did not expect him to be Mark's closest challenger every week. I don't know what did you sort of see. I don't know what if you've discussed it before this season, but
I mean, yeah, regular watchers will know that I've never really been huge on Alex Marquez. and you'll know from my preseason predictions, if I remember correctly, I did think Firmino Aldeguer might, tail him up a little bit. Once he gets used to the bike, I was like, well, and to be fair, if Alex was performing the way he has been the last few seasons, even particularly a couple of seasons ago, the way Firmino is performing now, it's probably on about that. There would be a good contest between the two of them, but Alex something, yes. And like you said, if they're saying that the 25 is not as good as the 24, and he's the strongest guy on the 24, then it's bringing him up towards the front and ahead of Pecco, which is the surprising thing. And like you said, to be sometimes it's like, thank God he is going as quick as he has, because he actually is the only guy that can challenge Marc in some races, which, like you said, I was very surprised to answer your question. Shocked, to be honest. But yeah, that has actually surprised me more than how many races Marc is winning, to be honest. Quite a bit more, I think. And look, we don't even really need to. I mean, we have to talk about how many more he's going to win, Marc. Like, is it just going to be all but maybe one or two more? Are you seeing it like that?
We actually had a discussion at work the other day about could we see Marc realistically winning every race for the rest of the season? And I'd have to say it's a possibility. I genuinely believe there is a very Marc could just walk the rest of the season. It I
Yeah,
don't look at
I
that.
feel the same way. Like I said,
Yeah, I
when I
don't.
said one or two more that he might not win, I'm talking like Marc crashing.
Hmm. I just
I don't think anyone's just going to beat him.
no. I think this is This could very easily be. I think he could sit out all of the sprint races now for the rest of the season. I think his points advantage is that good that he actually doesn't need to compete in them. So that's the level of dominance that
No,
we're talking about.
no,
So
yeah,
yeah, it's been incredible. It really
yeah.
has.
It is. I mean, I don't. We don't really have to say anything more about it. We've kissed Marc's ass long enough. All right. What's it been, like 5 minutes of that? Uh, for me, some of the bigger news that's happened throughout the season, because basically this title race has been, look, Alex put up a little bit of a fight. Realistically, was never going to do it. I've been frustrated with him at times where there has been chances for him to maybe unsettle Marc a bit, and he's not. A lot of people jump in my comments saying, it's pretty much impossible to do it. So I'll put my hands up and say, yeah, maybe that is the case. I still would like to see him throw a wheel up the inside every now and then, but whatever. Um, some of the bigger news then, because Marc has just blown it all away, has been a lot of the weird off-track stuff. A lot of, we're getting I'm getting Oscar Piastri to Alpine vibes with the Martine thing. You know, public social media announcements about, I'm going to explore I'm leaving at the end of the season. My contractually he can get out of it and all this stuff, and then now it's come back around that no, he is going to stay. So what the hell's going on? Like,
Yeah. It was a confusing one. It was around Le Mans time where Martine turned back up in the paddock, wasn't racing, turned up. Him and his manager were there, but he didn't show up in a public sort of way. Nobody really knew he was there other than Aprilia, and he ended up speaking to Aprilia, and basically, I think there and then told them that this is it. I'm going to leave at the end of the year because this clause is in my contract, and now we don't know how. But yeah, he had this clause. There was a performance clause that if he wasn't in the fight for the championship, he could walk away at the end of the season, 1 year into his 2 year deal. But now a lot of people are questioning this clause because he's all of a sudden backtracked on his initial statement of saying, I'm going to leave at the end of 25. And now he's staying for for 26. So either that clause wasn't as good as he thought it was, or he's seen what Marco Bezzecchi's been doing on the Aprilia and decided actually this bike is quite good. I'd quite like to stay and see if I can actually win races on this bike. So it was all a bit confusing. All seems to be settled now. They seem to be, getting their relationship back on track. So we'll see.
I do wonder how either ill-advised he was to want to make that call when he did. Obviously, that had to do with the clause being it was like a 6 race thing, wasn't it? So it had to be Le Mans, right? But to take it public, I'm not sure that's a part of any clause. You don't have to announce it publicly in order to invoke a clause, you know. So it could have all stayed sort of behind closed doors. So is that, I'd be curious to know. I know none of us will know, and we can't know, but I would be curious to know if that's him going, this is just the way I want to do it. I want everyone to know what's going on, blah blah blah, or has he been advised by management to sort of go, yeah, we need to sort of force his hand a little bit, or force Aprilia's hand a little bit, and force the hands of maybe any potential suitors to come and. But you'd be assuming that the thing that's strange to me about it is, if he was, I don't know if he was banking too much on the fact that he was a world champion and he could basically walk into any manufacturer he wanted, probably other than Ducati, and go, look, mate, I want the seat, so let's free up a bit of space here. Let's get it done. And maybe it hasn't turned out that way, for one reason or another, and then he's had to go, oh shit, like, you know, the options weren't there in the end, like he thought they were going to be. It's just strange to me that they went public with it. If you know what I mean, it doesn't have to be done that way. You can do all this behind closed doors, and then get to this point in the season, and the media could be going crazy. What's he doing with this clause? Was he moving? Was he not? Maybe a few rumors come out, and at the end of the day, you can just turn around and go, "No, we were never interested in leaving. We wanted to see." And no one would ever know that you explored your options.
Yeah, the worst part was really his manager was constantly in the press saying, this clause exists, we can leave. We're talking to Honda, but that's not our only option for 2026. So Martine, other than his public statement on his Instagram story, which was a massive shock that he was leaving, that was kind of a weird way to do that as well, I thought. Um, but then really it was his manager, yeah. So I think you might be right along the lines of maybe they thought this clause was more well worded than it was in the contract. It all obviously we'll never know, and it's all just speculation of he said she said at this point. But yeah, it made for some good articles towards that middle part of the season though, so that was always good. It made some entertainment as well.
Well,
So
it's great for all of us that sort of, you know, need the clicks, isn't it? But because you can just make
yeah,
videos or write your articles or whatever about it. It's great for all the publications. Um, but yeah, I found it very strange because Aprilia straight away, weren't they? They were like, we're not worried about this clause.
yeah,
Like straight away, they were like, there's no way he's going. And
yeah,
it turned out they were right. And whether they were right or not, or he, like you said, he's seen Bez start to turn the wick up on this thing and going, all right, hang on. If he can do it, maybe I'm going to be winning races. And we always know that the bones are there with the Aprilia, don't you? Like,
mm,
and it didn't take them that long. Like they struggled maybe a bit early on, but there was still
mm,
signs early on through Iagura mostly, to be honest, early on in the season. And then what was it, Bez in Silverstone, and then since then it's been regular. The pace is there definitely,
yeah.
and even Martine on his return in Brno, I thought very solid.
Yeah, I can't knock how he did. It was a top 10 in the Grand Prix. Didn't get points in the sprint, but that's understandable. It was his first race back since Qatar. But no, I thought it was a good weekend. He went about it right. Didn't throw it down the road this time. Um, yeah, it was a good sign. Seventh place is a good start. Something to build on. He's now got time off to fully recover. Yeah, Austria next. Not going to beat the Ducatis there, but a challenge for a top five again would be a good sort of look for him. I think next time out.
Yeah, and another good few weeks of recovery is, I think, the main thing. Got a few bit of match fitness under his belt in Brno, and then a few weeks off just to be like, how are we feeling? Bit more recovery time. he should be sweet to go almost by the time we get to Austria. So let's see what he's got for the rest of the season. I think it's quite exciting. It has been, in fact, when we're speaking about Marquez, and I know, like we said, the Aprilia maybe hasn't quite been on it from the start, but it is one of the big what ifs now, isn't it? What if Martine was fit on that Aprilia? Would he have clicked early? Would it have been similar to Bez, where they've found something, you know, a third of the way in or whatever it was through the season? It, could he have challenged from the start? We know he's outright incredibly quick.
I'm gonna say no. I don't think. I mean, if you told me at this point of the season, we're just over halfway, that Bez would be fourth in the championship, I wouldn't have believed you at the start of the season. I like Bez, but I don't think he would have been fourth. Um, I think Martine would have been, yeah, about fifth in the championship. That's where I would have expected him. I didn't see anyone challenging the Ducatis this year. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was a Ducati top five lockout at this point of the season. Bez is the only one that's stopping that. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't. Martine, I think I would have expected to be there if he was fit in that sort of fourth, third place. Because again, Alex Marquez is that sort of wild card that I didn't expect to be there either. So he wouldn't have challenged Marc, but maybe would have challenged Pecco at this point of the season. Yeah.
Yeah, and do you think? Well, you would have him ahead of Bez in the championship at this point. Then would you, like, maybe around third position, challenging Pecco, maybe
Yeah.
pushing Alex?
Um. I don't think I'd have him pushing Alex. Put around Pecco. That sort of. I think he would have been just off Alex. But I think if he'd been fit as well, or if Martin had been fit, all of Aprilia's efforts would have gone to him. But obviously, I think Bez has really benefited from Jorge not being there. And I know it sounds really bad to say, but I think it is the slight truth that not many people have spoke about this year. When you read and listen to everything Aprilia have said this year, it's always been Martin this, Martin that, and he's not been there for the majority. Like, he's been there for two Grand Prix this season, and still they find a way to bring up Martin every time. And it just, surely if you're Bez, you're getting a bit like annoyed at this point. Surely you've won them a Grand Prix at this point. You're on podiums for them. It just seems a bit. I don't know. I'm hoping for the rest of the year they're treated equally, and not all of this now gets switched to Martine, and Bez kind of gets left.
And you've got to think, if you're them, you wouldn't be that short sighted, would you? Because you know, if not everything's perfect, Martine's looking elsewhere for. As soon as that contract's up, he's looking elsewhere for the season after, isn't he? So you get into 27, he's looking for something else, right? As you get to halfway through 26. So, and Bez, he's probably got a reliable guy, and if you treat him right, he'll probably stick around for a long time, as long as he has a bit of equipment under him. So you'd think they wouldn't be that short sighted to be like, all right, now let's switch focus to Martine completely, and then lose him potentially. Have him already announce, by Le Mans next year that he's leaving. He's done a deal with HRC, and they're sniffing around Honda. Because they've locked down their two riders for next season.
Mia's locked in, but the second rider is not locked in yet for next season.
Like the
That's the.
Marini deals around the corner.
It's, well, I mean, Zarco as well. Just won the Suzuka 8 Hours for them as well. Could he be honest? I think he'll stay
Well,
at LCR,
okay,
but
yeah,
his name's been
yeah,
mentioned a
maybe.
few times.
So do I.
Yeah, he'll stay where he is, alright.
Um, I think they'll stay as they are, and I actually think they'll Chandra will go. Um,
Mhm.
but I mean, and they'll abandon for at least a few years this need to have an Asian rider. Um, probably until they find someone suitable, because it's just not benefiting anyone to have a guy that far off the pace, even though it does good for your sponsors. You'd be like, look, guys, wouldn't you rather be on TV with someone decent? Yeah. So, yeah, and Zarco delivering. I think it doesn't make sense for any of them to move about at the
Mm.
moment. I think
No,
just
I think he
get your
does.
head down, crack on.
Yeah. I mean, Luca,
And I think Honda need that stability.
yeah. Luca missed a chunk, obviously, with his injury that he picked up at Suzuka testing, but he's been in and about the top 10 for the majority of the season. He's not crashed a MotoGP bike yet this season, I don't think. I think that still stands. Um, so, I mean, I know there was a bit of a dig from Joan Mir at the start of the season towards Luca, a bit of a, at least I try 100% sort of every session, and that's what you want from a rider. Whereas maybe Luca's not pushing 100% all the time, but he's not finished outside of the points this season in any race that he's been in. So, I mean, yeah,
I mean, if I'm in charge in a team, I know what I prefer, but each their own.
yeah, I want
Um,
points.
I'm a big fan of Luca Marini. I think you can always use a guy like that.
Yeah,
It's all well and good to say that for Mir as well. I know that's kind of a bit of slack to Mir because he has been taken out. Like the last few
yeah,
times, it's been not his fault, right?
yeah,
But everything before that was his fault.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I just want you to, especially when you're a team, if you're competing for podiums and you're like, look, he's pushing to get a win or pushing to get on the podium and he's crashing because we just don't have that last 5% that we need or whatever, you'd be like, okay. But when you're like, look, we've been in the shit for a few years. We just need to steady, get ourselves out like a big old like tractor pull out of the mud. Like we're trying to get going here. We need to get the wheels spinning. Can you just stay on the bloody bike, please, mate? That's all I'd be saying. Like, mate, we just put the laps in, finish the race. And a lot of the time, you know what? You see them on track, they're pretty close to one another. So, you know, Team Marini for me.
yeah.
Again,
I don't
I'll
see
say that it's yeah. Go ahead.
H, H, HRC should keep it how it is. That's keep Zarco and LCR, keep the two Honda Castrol riders where they are. I don't see any need for change to be honest. So, but yeah, Chantra's the odd one out that didn't expect much, hasn't delivered much. I don't think there's much more that you can really say on Chantra this season. He's kind of just been there to make up the numbers, and that's really sad to say because he seems like a really nice guy. So, but what are you gonna do, really?
But he's been promoted above his station, hasn't he? So,
Yeah,
whilst it's not his fault, it's also like, well, we can't just be like, well, you're a nice guy, so do I have another one?
yeah.
How have you
It's
seen Honda's progress anyway?
I think they've done quite well. I think the progress has been. They have progressed to where I thought Yamaha would this year. They've made that step that I didn't expect. At the moment, I don't know if they are in the championship in the manufacturers, but I'd have them above Yamaha on performance so far this season. Um, Fabio, he's been great on the Yamaha. Don't get me wrong. Pole positions, yeah, they're cool, but a Grand Prix podium this year. I mean, it's more than Honda. It's more than Honda. No, Zarco's got two. He's got that win and a podium.
Uh, yeah, because Zarco's got the win. Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I think Honda's progression. Yeah, they're above where I expected them to be. They're doing better than I thought they would be. I don't know if this helps with the addition of Taka and Alicia Spargaro to their test team. Obviously, they've been helpful when replacing injured riders because they've both been doing all right in those replacement rides. Um, but yeah, I think the whole Romano Albesiano coming in from Aprilia as well as their first ever European technical director. I was reading a piece on Speed Week the other day from Bradle where he said that the whole culture's pretty much changed in Honda. If it's not working, we don't try to make it work, we just get rid of it. And if it's working, then it stays. We don't keep changing things about. So the whole sort of mindset in HRC is changing, which is what they needed. I think we'd said either at the start of the year or at the end of last season, it seems that this Japanese sort of culture and mindset of Honda and Yamaha needs to change to match Ducati, Aprilia, and KTM, and it's changing and it's working finally.
Yeah, and yeah, I completely agree. I think for most of it, yeah, I still a bit split on the Honda Yamaha thing, but I guess
Yeah.
Fabio does provide a bit of a outlier. So maybe if you judge Mir Marini, Zarco against Miller, Oliveira, and Rins, I'd say they are ahead. I think you're definitely right. Um, and I mean, yeah, it is funny, and Yamaha's in a weird position now because not only do they have to try and progress to continue on into next season, then into the new regs 27, and try and be near the front for that, and for the arrival of Toprak, and if you want to hold on to Fabio, you need to produce the bike that's going to win. Um, but now on top of that, they are developing obviously the V4. So making that work as well as just trying to build on the progression you're trying to do at the moment, and it's very slow, and in terms of the progression is slow, and it's hard work. And on top of that, you're gonna have to try and integrate this whole new engine, which you've got to try and make a good engine to start with, which is obviously half the battle. It's hard to see them coming to the front before Honda.
I'd agree with you on that. Yeah, they're not looking like they're there, and it's just not. I don't know. It just seems like things haven't clicked with all their riders. Oliveira, it's not clicked with this season. Rins, it's not clicking. Something's going wrong with Rins. He's still struggling from these injuries that he picked up while he was at LCR, which is mental to say that it's been a few years now since then. Um, Fabio's the only one that seems to be able to get the most out of the package, but that's probably because he's like top three in talent on the grid. Um, do I think Top Rack's going to make the difference? Because I feel like that's another main talking point at the moment. Looking ahead to next year, no, I don't think he will. He'll be decent, but he's openly admitted as well, which I like, that he's going to be going from a bad weekend in World Superbikes being a couple podiums to a bad weekend in MotoGP being maybe like 15th. So like getting a point. So he's being realistic as well, which I like to see. Um, this whole Miller situation as well is interesting to me. This whole idea that Miller might get the factory ride next year. Um, because I don't know with Toprak, because he got announced on a 1 year deal. Well, they first announced him as a 2 year, then they changed it to a 1 year, but Toprak's talking like it's a 2 year. So the whole sort of contract situation with Yamaha is really confusing me at the moment.
Yeah, and when you add in the fact, like you said, Miller being talked about for the factory ride, which Rins is actually contracted for,
Yeah,
which means there's going to be a break of contract there. Oliveira, I'm pretty sure, is contracted to
it's
Pramac.
contracted for next year. Yeah,
So there could be a potential break of contract either one. And it's mad that the guy that we're talking about, well, the one that's definitely going to be in one of them is Jack Miller, and he's the one without a contract. Of all
yeah.
five of them that are there, he's the only one that doesn't have a contract. And he's the one that we're saying, we see getting the factory ride.
Mm.
And then if that is happening, are you Top Rack going like, lads, you could have just negotiated me that?
Yeah.
Why am I going through Pramac?
It's
You know,
all
world champion on a BMW probably. So
yeah. I think the less said about that for Yamaha is probably the best at the moment because I'm getting confused remembering who's going where. Because then you throw like Diogo Moreira in the mix, and he's been mentioned a couple times. Yeah, it's just all getting a bit much.
yeah. And so if you're in if you're making the decisions at Yamaha, what would you do?
Oh, good question. Obviously you stick with Fabio and you offer him as much money as you need to hold him down forever if you can, because he seems to be the only one making that bike work. Um, I I get rid of Rins. As harsh as it sounds, we've seen the best of Rins. We're never getting that old Rins back. It's because of injury. Everyone says he walks around with a limp. He still sometimes uses crutches. So, it's not his fault as such. It's for his time at Honda. Um, so I get rid of him. I move Jack into the factory team because I think his feedback and his ideas with development will be crucial for the V4 and the success of the V4, considering he's had a lot of success on them in the past. Um, and then top rack in Pramac, obviously, and I try and promote a young rider like Morera, someone who's got that raw talent, a bit like they did with Quattararo in the Petronas Yamaha days. So I'd get rid of Oliveira and Rins, which is harsh, but I guess that's what they got to do. They've got to make
So
these big calls now to get back to where they want to be.
you're gonna pay to break 2 contracts then.
Well, if they've probably got the money, let's face it. I don't know how much they're all on, other than Fabio, who I know is on a lot more than anyone, either of us will ever see. So, but no, yeah, I think they've got to.
Well, to be fair, so is Oliveira.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think they're Oliveira's not gone anywhere with this season. I know it's again injuries at the start of the year, but he's not progressing even since he's come back. Um, Rins isn't progressing. What, he was dead last in that race in Germany when only 13 finished or whatever it was. Like, well, it was something stupid like that, wasn't it? There was
Yeah,
only a few of them that finished. He
and
was dead
Fabio was kind
last
of on the
still.
pace, if I remember properly.
Yeah, and then I think he may have crashed in that one in the end. But yeah, they all just. Miller was beating him. Marini was sixth in that race, and he'd just come back on the Honda to sort of do that comparison between Honda and Yamaha. So I think you've got to. You can't just. Yeah, you've got this contract, and you could honour it, but I think his time is done at Yamaha.
And I personally think when you're at such a crucial point in their sort of time with terms of development, like we said with the V4 coming in and all that stuff, I don't think you can afford to have guys that are just like, we're pretty much a spent force, just floating about outside of the top 10, not never really, maybe whether they can or not, pushing super hard, to extract something from it. Like, at least Jack gives it a red hot go, so yeah, I think it doesn't really benefit anyone to just keep going another season like that for no reason. And look, Oliveira, look, I don't pretend to know about what these guys are thinking and what they're like behind the scenes or whatever, but it doesn't really just seem like it's sort of just like sleepwalking into his end of his time in MotoGP, isn't it? And if you stay another year, it would just be another year of sleepwalking into the end of that contract, in which no one would pick him up at the end of that. Like, he's not staying in MotoGP after that. Like, no one's going to go and offer him a deal then, are they?
Yeah, I find it really interesting as well. And the way I kind of judge MotoGP riders coming to the end of their time in the sport is what reports you're seeing of where they might end up next season. So, Superbike offers mainly. I haven't heard any talk regarding Rins or Oliveira being mentioned for a top world Superbike ride next year. And that sort of tells me, so it sort of tells you what you need to know. To say that Iannone, who after 4 years away or whatever, it was, yeah, 4 years, got picked up by a top independent Ducati team. There's been no talk of either Rins or Oliveira even getting mentioned. Jack always gets mentioned coming to the end of his contracts in MotoGP if he's not done well. But there's been, so I think that sort of tells you all you need to know about other paddocks' view on them as riders at the moment as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. And like you said, you don't hear anything about them go, and even guys that still have something to offer, who maybe you'd say talent wise maybe aren't on a guy like Rins's level, maybe even Oliveira. If you're looking at a guy like Petrucci, of course, a MotoGP race winner, but never really you'd think an elite rider. Whereas when Oliveira was coming through, there was this kind of feeling that he may have been one of the next big stars, and it never really worked out that way, unfortunately for him. But and Rin's a big star at his best. You know how good he was, like unbelievably good on that
Mm.
Suzuki. Um, and even at times at Honda, with that win at Kota and stuff. But yeah, when a guy like Petrucci can go over there and be like, just comfortably get himself a good job, stay there for a while, be competitive, whatever it is. And like you said with Iannone now going over after how many years out and picking up a good ride, but with absolutely no sign of these two. Like for Superbike teams, probably looking at him going like, what would that give us?
Yeah, there had been some talk of Honda being interested in, I think, Oliveira at one point, but obviously stuff's gone on in that paddock that's now caused them to not be interested. Obviously, I'll mention it because being British, I'll mention it. Jake Dixon's sort of touted to take that ride. So it's all just a bit of an interesting scenario on their futures. I think they're done at this point. I'd be surprised if they get kept for another year in MotoGP. If they do, fair enough, fair play to them. I don't see any progress being made. I'd love to be proved wrong because, like we've just said, both top riders. Um, but I don't think they'll be on the grid next year.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And like you said, the way you laid it out for how you would go in that direction with Yamaha, I think that's what they're probably going to do. To be honest, I can 100% see that. I The only thing that might I think change is if, like, instead of trying to find a Moreira or someone to bring up, they do stick with Oliveira because they don't want to break two contracts in 1 year. But like you said, they've got the money. They probably don't care. Just get it done. Try and get some excitement going around the two teams. And I think Jack would do a world of good at the factory team just for a season, or maybe even another. Who knows if he's competitive again? Maybe another one. But and again, Jack's thing is like you're never going to get those big results out of him because he can't do it over a full race distance.
Mm.
Something happens there. But if you need a guy just to show you how quick actually is, because Fabio is kind of riding beyond the limits of the bike. Like
Yeah,
you can't just be like that's where the bike's at, because if he leaves tomorrow and you have to put somebody else on there, that's not a real representation of where you're going to be, right?
yeah,
Because he's riding above that level. But I think Jack, just in qualifying and like talk about like the first maybe 8 laps of a race. If you look at that, you'd be like, that's probably where the bike on a good day is.
is yeah.
Like it's about right. That's a good representation of where we are. I think that's valuable. And like you said, he's been everywhere. He's ridden every kind of bike. I think it would just be very helpful. Which
Yeah.
is mad to think after at the end of last season, lots of criticism of the fact that Pramac picked him up.
Yeah. Uh, but yeah, like we said, his development is what's the key, and Yamaha need it. There's been so much talk about this V4 about how it's going to be their great savior, but you read what they're saying, and it's still this bike is not on the pace. This engine's not there yet, and if they want to race it next year, which they've kind of talked about doing, I'd be a little worried considering we're in August now, and this bike they're still not talking about wildcarding it. They want to do it at some of the latter Grand Prix this year, but there's been no mention of it. Augusto Fernandez is still saying, I've not tested it at full power yet. I've not tried out its full 100% capability yet. So, they need that kind of
I will.
push.
Potentially, one problem I have is that you can't just run it for one rider and not the other, can you? So,
Yeah,
um, you couldn't be like, we'll chuck Jack on the V4, just have a go, mate, and Fabio, just so we get some results coming through, you just stay on the inline. But
yeah.
again, you also couldn't just leave Jack at Pramac and do it there because you would probably don't want Toprak on that for his first season either. So you're kind of in a weird place there where you if it's a huge risk to run it next season, massive. I know they'll
Mm.
test it first and they'll be like, is it on the pace or not, before they make that decision. But if you think like, well, maybe it's nearly there, maybe by about a third of halfway through the season, maybe we'll get it on pace, even though it's not at the start. There's no guarantee it's going to happen. So if you run it at the start, it's shocking. And then you've got Fabio stuck on that all season. Like, he's gone. Don't worry about
Yeah.
that. He is leaving. So, yeah, tough spot. I think Jack's a good move to promote him. Of course, I would say that. I've got a. If everyone looks up here, you can see why I would like that. Okay.
Mhm.
But yeah. Any big talking points on your side, mate, that you wanted to bring up?
I mean, recently it's all gone a bit quiet, which, in my line of work isn't great, but it's nice that the chaos is over. Um, but we're in the summer break. I don't think there's really too much to major. I think now the Martine saga's over, or over. Um, all is well
Yep.
in the. We're now on the Yamaha saga, but we've discussed that. Um, I don't think there's anything. I'm just looking through the order, seeing if there's anything too. I think everyone's. Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered all the major breaking stories from this
Yeah.
part end of the
I mean,
first
the
half.
only manufacturer we haven't talked about, the only
KTM.
manufacturer I haven't mentioned is KTM. And that's, I mean, I don't know if there's any way of knowing really what's going on or what's going to happen there. Very
Yeah,
strange year for
that's.
them with all the stuff going
Mm,
on with the company. Um, and we know that, I mean, I feel like this is not the kind of company that just disappears overnight. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're a massive company. They'll be bought
yeah,
up. I actually haven't been keeping up with what's been going on with that. They may have been finding a deal as, recently. Whatever it is, however these things work. But um, I get it brings Pedro Acosta into play for 27. I mean, contract wise, I think everything's pretty much settled. Like you said, I think we're almost fully settled for next season. It's just a few things to sort out at Yamaha. I think Honda will just tie down what they've got pretty much and then replace Chantra. KTM, Bastianini finding a bit of form in Brno.
yeah. I sort of read somewhere, I can't remember where, that KTM have pretty much said we're keeping all four the same for next season if we can. So I don't see any changes there. I don't. KTM are normally quite accurate when they say things like that. They're normally quite honest. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I think this late sort of good form for Bastianini's maybe helped. I know he was struggling in testing at the start of the year. So he's progressed slowly, but that actually has been a sign of progression, which is nice. Um, Obviously, yeah, the Brno weekend was good for him. Hopefully, he carries that to Austria. I know KTM will want him to carry that to Austria, um, but it's all looking up for them again. I think a deal has been finalised, so they'll be on the grid. Don't know about Tech 3 though, because there's been talk that they're going to get sold, but that's a whole other thing that we won't know any more about until after the summer break now, because I know Hervé Poncherel's on holiday, so he's not answering anyone's when anyone contacts him at the moment. So yeah, but KTM, yeah, they're kind of they've kind of had a sort of season that hasn't been worth mentioning, if that makes sense. Nothing that outstanding has happened for them,
100% know what you mean.
but they've not been underwhelming either. They've just kind of been there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly how I would describe it. It's just like they've had a season in MotoGP.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
That
They
is
just
it.
kind of It's kind of
Right.
been KTM's whole
Well, should we talk?
existence in
Yeah,
MotoGP. So
pretty much. Yeah, maybe it's just like the way it is and the way it's supposed to be. And then eventually Pedro Costa signs for uh, Honda, mm, Ducati, and becomes a superstar without KTM.
yeah, probably.
Right. Let's talk about Moto 2. Well, we've got a little bit more time. And we've
Mhm.
covered everything that there is to cover, basically, in MotoGP. Should Manu Gonzalez be further ahead in the World Championship?
Yeah, because that American Grand Prix of Americas where he was just terrible in the wet weather. Should have more of a lead. Cannett's fumbled a few good opportunities this year, so maybe he should be closer. I guess you could argue as well. He
Mm.
also should be being considered for a MotoGP ride, which it doesn't seem like he is anymore. So that's an interesting one. But yeah, that whole top and the Moto2 Championship's a bit weird this year. I don't see anyone. Manu's consistent, but I don't see anyone outstanding like we've seen with Pedro in the past, where you just look at them and think, yeah, they are MotoGP
Yep.
ready, sort of thing.
I wonder if a little bit of that is with Manu Gonzalez again not seeming like an elite talent and not
Mm.
drawing that much attention from MotoGP teams is because how many years has he spent in MotoGP in Moto 2? It doesn't feel like that long, but it also doesn't feel like it's just he's exploding on the scene, does it? And while he was
Yeah,
always he's been there more than 2 seasons, hasn't he?
yeah, because he came across from Supersport, World Supersport. This is his fourth year, yeah, fourth full year in Moto2.
Right. Something about that, I think, is like, well, if some guy just comes good all of a sudden in his fourth season, what's to say when a better talent doesn't come through, he would then be not the best, if that makes sense. So I
Mm.
think when you look at a guy like Moreira, for example, who is being linked to MotoGP rides, it's because he's come in, had a season to get settled, and now this season looks the business. So that I think is more like, well, I think the perception is then that because it hasn't taken him 3, 4 seasons to sort of get good, it's like, well, that's just more of a mercurial talent then. That's just like a guy who has it. He
Yeah,
didn't need to learn it that much. He just he's just
it's there.
good
Yeah,
from the start. And it hasn't taken circumstance of certain guys, Fermin Aldeguer goes up, Pedro Costa goes up, whatever. And then Manu Gonzalez picks up the pieces. It's a bit like Canet. Canet will
yeah,
never be looked at for a MotoGP. Right? Same with Dixon probably as well.
yep.
Um, even if Barry Baltus sort of starts to come good now, I know he's still quite young, so maybe it's a little bit different. But when you've spent the years there, and then you just all of a sudden you're decent or you're good, it does feel a little bit like, well, this is just one of those years where it's a gap here between superstars, and he's looked now it's making him look like a superstar when he actually isn't.
Yeah.
Whereas, like you said, with Moreira, whatever, it's it's more like he's come in, had a year to settle, and then now he's good, which
Mm.
means he's actually pretty damn good. If that makes sense, I'm waffling a little bit, but in my head it makes sense.
No, no, to me that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's how the mind of people who look at who's going to ride for their teams in MotoGP, I think that's how it works. Cannett's been overlooked. He's off to World Superbikes by the sound of it. Chick Dixon's been overlooked. He's off to World Superbikes by the sounds of it. So it all kind of fits into that pattern of, yeah, you have a few seasons to make it work. And if you don't, you either get stuck in Moto2 forever or you get a factory offer from World Superbikes for a lot of money and you take it and run with it.
Yep, yep.
That's what,
And look,
yeah.
it's not a bad way to earn your dough, is it? But I'm sure they all would be a bit disappointed. Like, if you're Manu Gonzalez or Aaron Canet here, they probably are looking at it going, look, I deserve it. But
Mm.
at the same time, like I said, it's taken you like however many years to figure it out. You're the gap here between Fermin Aldeguer and Iagura and David Alonso and Diogo Moreira being superstars. So if David Alonso turns up next season and he's on it and Manu Gonzalez is second to him, it's just going to be like, well, David Alonso's next in the queue. So um, it would just be, yeah, I feel like that's the way it works with these guys that have, like you said, if you don't get it done in the first, 3 seasons, it's like, well, you had your chance. There's another kid coming through by the name of, where is he? Max Keyless, for example. And he is then the next big guy. And let's talk about Moto 3 quickly because we've got a few more minutes. Rueda, world champion already.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I literally did an article today, read on Sky Sports Italia. Looks like he's set for Moto2 next year with Red Bull KTM IO, so they've sorted that early. Um,
Makes
it
perfect
could,
sense.
could be on pace to, well, not on pace, but could break David Alonso's win records in Moto3 if he keeps on the way he's going. So that'd be
Yeah,
one
I
to
mean, what have
watch.
we got? 10 races left.
Something like that, yeah.
How many's he got? 1, 2, 3,
7.
4, 5, 6, 7.
And
Wow.
he needs 14, I think, to break.
Yeah.
He'd need to get 14 wins or 15 wins to be higher than Alonso. So it's doable.
Now, I think where it gets difficult for him is I think Carpe and Keyless only get better from now on.
Mm.
So that probably makes it tough. I mean, Piqueras is not really. Well, me and you both at the start of the season, I remember, were Piqueras guys.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
honestly
And
thought that was the bigger talent between him and Rueda.
yeah. It's I'm lost with Piqueras this year. I look for him in the order and you look for him in practice and it's like, he's 10th. He's just, he's just made Q2. Okay, this isn't great. And it's just not been there since the start of the season. Since he crashed at Le Mans and
Yeah.
Silverstone, it's just kind of fallen off. And like you've mentioned, Carpe, Keyless are there and they're always there. They have these rookie mistakes because obviously this is their first year in the Grand Prix paddock, so it's going to happen. But they're just going to be there. And again, next year, if Piqueras doesn't go up to Moto2, those two are going to be there. They're going to fight for the title, and they're not going to let you have it just because you're this older, experienced rider.
Yep.
And obviously, David
Exactly. Yeah.
Munoz there as well. He's the other big sort of.
Well, yeah, he's another one that again you talk about since like where was it? Well, when he won in was it Aragon?
Aragon, yeah.
Absolutely flying since then. And you
Mm.
know what? Hasn't been as dim-witted either.
Yeah.
Maybe a little
Yeah.
bit, but not anywhere near the level he usually is.
No,
So
yeah, he's been normal.
fair play to him. Yeah, it's just been riding like a guy who rides near the front of Moto3.
Yeah.
But without
It's,
like trying to kill somebody at the same time.
Yeah, that's probably
So
the right way to sum up.
yeah,
So maybe he's grown up. Maybe he's grown up a bit, which is good.
it's random how he did it. I mean, he just showed no signs of growth for several years. Got how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got 7 or 8 races into this year, and it looked like nothing had changed. And then all of a sudden, he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sweet now. Just had to win that race."
Yeah, and then it all clicked.
That was it. Yeah. Well, I think we've done it all, mate. I know you're a busy man today, so thanks very much for taking a bit of time out in between sessions there over in Thruxton.
It's all good, mate. It's all good.
To give us a little quick chat and just before we do go, before I'll bore everyone for a second, and you too, Luke. So stay on the line for a sec. Apologies to everyone because I've not been uploading much. Since I haven't done a race review since Magello. Around 9, I think it was. So, that is all just me. First of all, being a little bit lazy. Quick turnaround between. I think one of the races was only a week in between. I've had a bit going on. Started a new job and stuff. So now, after this break, this was my reset point. Also, I was off to Brno, and that also was like I flew to Brno on the Thursday. I worked until the Wednesday, so I couldn't get a video done after the race before that. Anyway, whatever. We're back from this race onwards to the end of the season. It's going to be back to consistent reviews and everything's going to be fine. But also in that time, just to keep stuff going, I did really, start doing this over on Instagram. So you can watch reels. I've taken little, 1-minute reels, 30-second reels, chucked them on there like the kids do. Little clips of the shows and the reviews and all other sorts of things that I've already posted here on YouTube before. Go follow it over there. It's just robgp._ something. Find it. It's just my logo, the yellow robgp. I'll put that on the screen at the end of this anyway. Go follow me on there as well. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Luke. You've been great again. Of course, better insight than mine, which is what the viewers are looking for. And we'll see everybody on the next one. Thanks, Luke.
Cheers, mate.